Come join Kyle, John and David as they go through what's on the playlist. Find out what's everyone's favourite at Chicken Soup for the Soul Entertainment. We have a few segments, to be honest. In and out points, no celebs and the gossip. Back in time where we're talking about the big M's, coming attractions, what the cue. Quick checks, who'll be laughing? You abundantly. Welcome to Dual Redundancy.
Yes, welcome to Dual Redundancy, the only podcast where you can hear all ace in television, entertainment news, and Emmy nomination reactions with too many else with exactly the same opinions. I'm one of those hosts, David Allen, and another one is
John Burwick, and a third one is
Kyle Bridger. I would say that I am the Last of Us to John's Succession to Dave's White Lotus.
Oh, the top 3 Emmy nominated shows. We don't need to worry about which one was which there, but the top 3. Wow, I'm so proud that you put me in that group, Kyle.
Yeah, well, I had to say you're like the equivalent of falling off the side of a yacht and smashing your head.
Oh, spoiler alert!
Oh yeah,
for one of those shows.
Sorry.
We don't know. We didn't say which one it was. It could be any 3 of those shows. So
could be anybody.
It could be anybody. All right.
Yeah, that could have happened in Last of Us. They were on yachts, weren't they?
Maybe. Flashback episode. Who knows? All right. Yes, we're talking about those 3 shows and all the Emmy nominations they got, and the rest of the TV shows got this year, because it's our 10th annual Emmy nomination reaction special. We're breaking them all down for the 75th Primetime Emmy Awards that may or may not take place on September 18th on Fox. And the nominations were announced yesterday, July 12th. And today we are reacting to all those nominations. We'll do our predictions in September for a ceremony that, again, we will hopefully get in September. We'll see. We'll talk about the strikes in a little bit later on tonight, that's for sure. But yeah, we're breaking down the nominations. We should say up front, this is for shows that aired between June 1st, 2022 and May 31st, 2023. So it's that time period. So that's why you see something like Saul, the second half of the final season, nominated tonight. That's why you don't see The Idol. Well, there's probably many reasons why you don't see The Idol.
Yeah. Oh, boy.
on the Emmy nominated list. But that explains that window there. You know, it's season 1 of The Bear, not season 2. We'll break it all down a little bit. But yeah, we're going to go through all the nominations for drama, comedy, and limited series. And then we'll do some of our favorites, some odd ones at the end. But we should jump right in, and we should just start talking about the Emmys here. And just like last year, Succession leads the pack with 27 nominations, followed by The Last of Us with 24, The White Lotus with 23, and then Ted Lasso with 21. That is total nominations. If you look at just like the major nominations, the ones you see in the primetime broadcast, acting, writing, directing, stuff like that, it's still Succession leading with 14, followed by The White Lotus with 12, and then it's limited series Beef with 9. So those are your top, 3, 4, 5 shows here on Emmy nomination night. What do you think? Overall thoughts, Kyle, on those shows leading?
I mean, I think it makes sense. Succession was probably the best show of the year. I mean, it's probably the 3 best shows of the year, and they got nominated that like they should. So I'm not surprised at all. The Last of Us, I bet, will pick up some technical stuff as well. The White Lotus is probably going to pick up some like writing stuff. So these shows are all really, really good. So I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of talked about this, leading up to this, where it's like HBO has this like just this treasure on their hands of, these 3 shows. These 3 Sunday night 9 p.m. shows, to have these in their arsenal this year. I mean, if anything, they were probably canceling each other out for more nominations. And we'll talk about the individual categories in a bit, but like they fill up all the other categories. And if, it stopped other shows from HBO's library, whether it's something like Barry, the House of the Dragon, so many other shows that maybe could have gotten into different spots. No, they were blocked by their own stuff.
Yeah.
I'm talking a little bit about HBO, and we should look at the numbers by the networks, and it's usually a race between Netflix and HBO. Last year, it was a huge win for HBO with 140 to Netflix's 105. And this year, despite the domination of Succession, Last of Us, White Lotus, it was actually 127 for Warner Brothers Discovery. They went down a bit, but Netflix also slipped. They went down to 103. So again, Warner Brothers Discovery, HBO Max, they are still leading. If you look at just the major noms, which we've talked about, just the ceremony noms, it's HBO still 40 to Netflix's 25, and then you have Apple TV Plus with 17. So
let me ask you, Dave.
Yes.
Did the total number of nominations across all the channels go up or down, or is that still about the same? Because is this a shrink because there's less stuff nominated overall, or is this a shift where it's less them and more other people?
That's a great question. That's a very good question. I don't have the full data here. I mean, you can see in this the variety thing that other networks, got, Hulu and FX, Apple TV Plus, Amazon, like Disney Plus, they all rose in nominations. So yeah, maybe it was spread a bit there, but I can't say that it was a nice even spread throughout all the different shows, because we'll talk about some categories in a bit. Like some of them, it's like 2 shows that it looks like the Academy only watched 2 or 3 shows, and they went with the entire ensemble for those shows. So yes and no, I think, is the answer to that. Yeah. Any thoughts on this list, Kyle? I mean, are you surprised, with these leaders?
I mean, I'm surprised, honestly, to see that Hulu and FX are now like just conjoined together for eternity now. Aren't they 2 different it's just so weird to me, but
I mean,
that's beside the point.
I mean, it's FX on Hulu, and now it's Hulu/FX, it looks like. And
I know, it's just so silly. But yeah, I mean, I'm actually surprised to see Netflix still up there. It's got to be from a few shows at this point, just based on the quality of what they have. But I think Netflix is just so popular that it makes sense that they would have that many nominations. But I'm actually surprised. I feel like Apple TV still doesn't have all the content there, and they're racking up nominations, even though probably a ton are for Ted Lasso. But that's quite a bit of nominations for, I mean, their content quantity compared to these other networks is much smaller.
Yeah, I mean, looking at it, I'm trying to see some of the shows here that, for Apple TV Plus that really got a lot of nominations.
Shrinking.
Yeah, Shrinking got, a couple there. Blackbird, Bad Sisters, Ted Lasso. I think this also includes, a lot of documentaries. I know still the Michael J. Fox movie got a handful of nominations. So yeah, it's like, without Severance, like they're still getting a lot of nominations. Maybe it's just the campaigning. It's like that they have that budget to campaign and get those shows out there for people to pick. But
I also feel like with Amazon Prime, how much money they have spent, or, we hear them spending on shows. I just never hear anything about any of these shows, really.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like bad marketing, or they just dump it, or it's hard to find on the.
Personally, I think it's hard to find.
Yeah.
We've talked about their system of if you want to watch Scrubs, it's like, well, here's season 3 of Scrubs. Yeah. Here's then season 6. Here's actual Scrubs you can buy at it's the store. Oh, and then here's season 1. Like, it's put all of it together, or because it's so confusing. It's like, well, I want to watch it streaming. Well, here's the DVDs of Scrubs if you want to buy it. It's like, no, I don't. It's too all together, and it really makes it hard. And I think for a lot of people, Amazon is like, yeah, I get that for groceries or items, and then the streaming service. Oh, that's a nice little perk. That's a nice little thing to have on the side. But the majority of people, I think, have Amazon for the supplies, not for the content, at least yet. Well,
when it comes to TV, I feel like they're getting bigger in the movie aspect.
Yeah. So let's jump now to drama series. We'll go through each of the categories in a bit. We'll talk about the nominees just in general for drama first. And the nominees are Andor, Better Call Saul, The Crown, House of the Dragon, The Last of Us, Succession, The White Lotus, and Yellow Jackets. All right. Give me your thoughts there, Kyle, on those 8 nominees.
Well, Andor is a blind spot for me. I just never saw it, but I heard good things. I dropped out of The Crown. I just said, I don't really care. I don't care. I just don't care.
I think that's like a lot of people this year. I think the buzz wasn't there for this season. I think it came and went, and we'll talk about it in a little bit about Emmy nominations. But yeah.
But I just dropped out. I think I made it 2 episodes, and I'm like, I'm done. I love The Last of Us. That has a lot of hype. The White Lotus was great. Better Call Saul, awesome. House of the Dragon. You feel like that's one that's gonna just be there, but it doesn't really have the juice to put it over the edge. But
I saw a report today that season 2 is still filming despite the SAG strike. They're going to they were powering through the WGA strike, and they're going to power through the SAG strike somehow.
Can they get around it because they're using like British actors or something? I
don't know, but we'll see if the backlash and stuff like that comes up. You know, maybe in the next hour, this news will be already out of date. But as of this time of recording,
yeah. And Succession, it's going to be hard to beat Succession, and Yellow Jackets. I haven't watched, but it sounds like it may have dropped off from where it was last year.
Yeah, I'm surprised Yellow Jackets made it for series here. Season 1 was a lot of fun. I thought season 2 was very lackluster. I mean, it was definitely less buzzy. Oh my, pardon the pun of that, but like, especially, I mean, it was going up against Succession. I mean, like in that Sunday 9 p.m. slot that they even had to move it to like a Friday, like streaming release to get any kind of reception
juice for it.
Yeah, and I just think like it went, kind of a bunch of jump the shark like WTF moments in season 2. It only got 3 nominations total: series, casting, and then lead actress. So it definitely, is a step down just nominations wise from season 1. And kind of yes, I was kind of surprised he made it.
You think just a holdover? Just a holdover? Maybe they're late to the.
I think so. I think there's a lot of stuff with Emmys where they anoint something, they stay with it, and it maybe for a season or 2 longer than they should, and then it takes those newer shows a little bit more time to really, get in there. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, HBO, 4 out of the 8 of these are from HBO. And of those 8, they top 4 in total nominations for each series, like in this category. So.
You know what's crazy to me, and John could probably back me up on this, is that it is amazing at how many people love The Last of Us when video game works have been so bad at times, but that this
Pedro's
is like
the
universally
internet's daddy.
loved.
I mean, everyone.
I know.
Everyone's loves Pedro Pascal.
This one did it good. I mean, I think. A little bit of generalization, but I think studios haven't been putting the money into stuff like that. They're like, oh, people already like that. We don't have to go hardcore on it. And I think that's not HBO's way. We'll see now that they're HBO Discovery, but that's not HBO's way. So they didn't do that. And look, it did well, and I think, same thing to a degree with the Mario movie, where they put some time and effort into how it looks and rendering and all that. And it seemed to do pretty well, so.
And I think the team behind it is really good. With the guys that did Chernobyl, it's like, this pretty good setup you got there.
Yeah. So I mentioned a little bit about like Yellow Jackets only really getting 1 for 1 or 2 for lead actress, but same with Handmaid's Tale. Elizabeth Moss is the single nomination for The Handmaid's Tale this past season, and I think that's another one where it's like that show's still on, like people, and it's just like. I think that she's going to keep getting a nomination till that show is over, but it's wild that this was a juggernaut. This was the first series to win, like a streaming series to win the series Emmy, and now it's non-existent. It's not a part of the conversation. And then you brought it up, and I also say it's a weak year for previous winner, The Crown. Just 6 total nominations. Series, 1 supporting actress, and then 4 below the line categories, like the crafts. But I know you said you dropped.
which is part of its charm. I mean, the directing and the cinematography is usually really good. The production design, all that stuff. But yeah, I was just like, who cares? Who cares?
Yeah, I'll say I know you dropped out of it, and there's only one supporting actress that got a nomination this season. Let's see, it's Elizabeth Debicki for Princess Diana in The Crown. Is that the one from at least what you remember from what you saw?
I mean, yeah. I mean, she was doing a great job. I liked the Queen, the new Queen. I thought it was okay. I mean, what was the guy's name? Dominic West. He was good, doing well too. I mean, it's just I was just looking at it, and I'm like, I kind of knew a little bit of the storyline. All the stuff in the past kind of intrigued me because I didn't really understand it or have the full scope of it. So at this point, I knew a little bit more. I'm like, I don't really care. And it seemed like the stuff that was happening in the past had more importance than whatever's happening, what they were currently telling. You know what I mean? So I was like, I don't really care.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, it was a show that would get a lot of Emmy nominations in those acting categories, and there just wasn't space this year. And it was what we've been talking about, the fault of the HBO dramas. I mean, 14 of the 16 nominations in supporting drama categories were from 2 shows. If you look at supporting actor and supporting actress for drama series, they were all from Succession and The White Lotus, or 14 of the 16 were from those 2 shows. And that's even after some of the previous supporting actors from those shows from Succession went lead this year. They jumped to a different category, and yet still 14 of the 16 were from White Lotus and Succession. And then if you want to even go crazier, you look at the guest categories for drama, guest actor and guest actress in a drama series. All the spots in both categories are from Succession and The Last of Us. Pretty much if you were a guest actor on The Last of Us, you got an Emmy nomination this year. Yeah. So like the entire ensemble pretty much, because there's so few people on that show got a nomination. But a lot of these I can't argue with. I mean, of course I was going to be happy for Nick Offerman and Marie Bartlett, getting a nomination for those episodes. Of course, but wow. If we go back, or if we go to the supporting actor in a drama series specifically.
This one. Okay, I love Succession. I love The White Lotus. To me, you could drop a couple of the people. Like, I love Nicholas Braun, but I don't.
No, he's out
go
for this season. He did not have enough, I think, this season. Like, I'm glad to see Alan Ruck here finally get a nomination, get something.
Go.
But I want him. Of course, Matthew McFadden. He's gonna be hard to beat for Succession. But all right, really, Nicholas Braun? Okay, we can give Skarsgård one. He had a lot to do this season, but
even still, it's it seems like a lot for one show when there's other obvious ones from that show to me. The White Lotus it's tough.
Yeah, it's the entire ensemble.
It's an ensemble show that's so good. And all those characters have their moments, so.
I mean, a lot of people think the drama series or comedy series category are ensemble award already, but it's not. There's so many other pieces that go into that. I almost think the Emmys just have an ensemble category, best ensemble. Yeah. And then you could have, just Succession. So then people, you can or White Lotus, you can have these ensembles nominated, and maybe you can get some other blood in this category. Yeah. Because by the looks of it, it's you saw 2 shows this year. And, the ones you didn't see, okay, let's see. Of the 2 of the 16 that weren't from those 2 shows, Elizabeth Debicki, which we've talked about, The Crown, and thank God Ray Seahorn for Better Call Saul made it in. Yeah. I thought I was worried for her, because of the other shows just dominating the categories.
90 years, yeah.
John, are you happy to see this nomination for Ray, and of course all the other ones for Better Call Saul?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it many times before. It feels like peak TV that is kind of just getting ignored for this ceremony. How many times have we said, "Oh, we're disappointed to not see this person, nominated, this show nominated." So yeah, I'm glad to see it. It's I think a little overdue.
Yeah, And I was worried because, I mean, she's always on the bubble. It was so long ago since the final season aired, or the final half season of Saul aired. And if we look at just overall for Saul got 8 nominations, but they got nothing for directing, nothing for cinematography. And some even thought maybe, hey, Carol Burnett, could get something as a supporting player this past season. Obviously a huge icon in television, or even like a fun, like, legacy guest award for either Aaron or Brian coming back for the final season. But no, I mean, it's just wild that, like, sure, it got writing, got some acting ones, but, like, the directing and cinematography in this show is just top notch. And we're, I'm looking at what it's nominated for, and it pains me to say this, but right now they have had a total of 53 Emmy nominations across all their seasons. They've yet to win, and I think it may end up 0 for 53.
Yeah, I think it's taken for granted. I think the show is just taken for granted. Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, just two of the most consistent shows, what they're able to do writing wise, directing, cinematography, and it's just, I think, taken for granted. It's also bad luck because it's hard to deny a series like Succession, but to win no Emmys for one of the best, most consistent shows is crazy.
It's sad, but it's really going to be a major uphill battle for all of it. It kind of stinks. I'm not going to say that the other shows deserve it less, but they definitely deserve it. And with the amount of time that's passed, it's going to be real hard for them.
Yeah, a lot. Because most, they were trying to do the Breaking Bad approach of that, splitting the half season, having one air during the voting of the other. So then it's like, hey, like, look how good this final half is. You should award us for this first, but it didn't work last Emmy cycle. It's, it's going to be a long time now for people to remember what happened, especially if the ceremony gets delayed even further. I don't know. And the only thing I can hope for a little bit, I mean, thankfully Bob Odenkirk made it in. We can look at the lead actor race. He made it in alongside the old man's Jeff Bridges, and then 3 from Succession. And Kieran Culkin, who had a great season, Jeremy Strong, who's always great, and then you have Brian Cox in there, which we'll talk about in a minute. But I wonder, like, is it one of those things where it's like, okay, you got 3 Succession people, you all have your favorites, will there be some kind of vote split situation, and maybe Bob Odenkirk could win this? Maybe it's.
I mean, it could be possible. I could see Pedro Pascal being hard to beat too.
Yeah, me too.
But it could be the split because Jeremy, has he won it already?
Jeremy has won it before.
Yeah, so he's already won it. Brian's, a phenomenal actor that, but Kieran, a lot of people think this was his season.
He was good.
Is he gonna take it?
The Emmys love Pedro Pascal. He also got nominated, we'll talk about in a minute, for Guest Actor in a Comedy Series for SNL. I think he had a narration nomination for a doc he did. So he has, multiple nominations this year. So they definitely loved him. But
yeah, I would love to see Bob Odenkirk win. And maybe they do something where it's like, oh, what a long run, what a great run, you win. But for the shows that are out this year, I don't think there's that goodwill going in that direction. Yeah.
And we can talk a little bit about Brian Cox in this nomination. I guess this is light spoilers for Succession, so if you haven't seen it for some reason, skip ahead a little bit here. But let's just say Brian is not around for the full season. And I really thought, initially when he was out, really quick into episode 3, that I'm like, oh, maybe he'll go guest actor and win that, it'd be an easier category. I'm now wondering if, because of those 1 or 2 extra pre-taped footage appearances we saw later in the season, that maybe it was 1 too many to qualify for guest. But I'm like, oh, you probably could have gone supporting. It would have been tough to go up against Matthew McFadden and the rest of the people we already mentioned tonight. But no, I guess maybe he was just like, no, I'm a lead actor. I'm going lead. I've been lead. I'm lead.
Yeah.
And I mean, I understand. Character.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I understand that. I understand that too. Because in reality, everything that happens in the rest of that season revolves around the fact that of his death, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So let's talk a little bit more. You know, there's so much HBO love here, but I mean, House of the Dragon didn't make too much of a dent. Sure, it got series, but got 8 nominations, and you know, it was for mostly below the line stuff. At least Game of Thrones would get writing, directing, some acting ones here and there. That didn't get any of that yet. And then, you know, Andor got series. It got some directing stuff, which is good. For Star Wars, you know, Mandalorian actually went, you know, down. It was 9 below the line categories. It used to be up there in that series category. And Netflix's Stranger Things, you know, all these like sci-fi shows, just 6 below the line stuff in sound, in stunts. It was, again, it used to get acting. It used to get, you know, the series nomination, and it's not there anymore. And
you can't do the same thing over and over and expect to be on top every year.
Yeah.
You know?
That's true. That's true. And speaking of fantasy, sci-fi, it was also kind of a poor day for Amazon and their big budget shows. I mean, Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, we've talked about, God, how much money they spent on that thing. Just 6 below the line, you know, nominations. And The Boys, you know, surprisingly, I didn't even know if it was eligible this season. Maybe other people forgot too. It just got 2 nominations for sound editing and stunts. That's it.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, with The Boys, is it the mature content, or like I don't know, because The Boys, you could flip flop with Yellow Jackets, in my opinion, and it could be one of the top shows of the year. The Rings of Power show stunk. That thing absolutely stunk. And whatever money that Amazon wants to put into that, I don't think I'm going to tune in for another season. But The Boys being snubbed is a snub in my mind. Should be somewhere.
Yeah, at least more tech awards, at least. I think, you know, some of the sound and the editing and just the cinematography. But let's jump to comedy. Unless there's anything else you want to bring up in drama, Kyle. Anything I'm missing?
One last thing. Has the dude from who plays Homelander ever won or been nominated?
I don't think he's been nominated.
Dude, that right there alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The guy is
crazy.
Legit makes you feel scared out of your mind every time he's on screen.
Yeah, and I'm really worried about that next season with what we're going to get from him. But yeah, so let's go to comedy series, and we'll look at the nominees. We're actually going to do the nominees first, John. And when we're going to talk about the nominees are Abbott Elementary, Barry, The Bear, Jury Duty, The Marvelous Miss Maisel, Only Murders in the Building, Ted Lasso, and Wednesday. So just give me your initial thoughts here first, Kyle, and then we'll talk about maybe some of the category issues. But
yeah, I mean, that was one of the, I mean, John didn't even have to, it was just, that to me is the main thing, is like, are some of these even comedies? I mean, what would you say is the most legit comedy? Probably Abbott Elementary.
I think Abbott Elementary and Jury Duty.
Yeah,
those are.
I think those are the two. The others are like this mix, and I'm not saying it like a bad thing. It's just we're blurring the lines here of somebody just saying, "Oh, this is a comedy series," and yeah, we go along with it. You know what I mean? Barry was. I mean, Barry.
It started as a dark comedy, but then I think the word comedy got less and less. And sure, there's funny moments in it, but it got darker and darker and darker.
Yeah, and I mean, it's fine, and it has some moments that are funny, but yeah, it's a very different show now. The Bear, too, is like a 30-minute drama to me, with some comedic elements. But they're all fantastic shows. Barry's great. The Bear, especially if you said it's season 1.
Yeah, it's season 1 here, yep.
Yeah, so these are all very, very strong contenders. I'm sure you'll love to see that Jury Duty got in there.
Very excited.
I'm surprised by Wednesday. I knew there was hype for like popularity wise. I just didn't realize.
Yeah, I'm surprised the series got in. I could see Jenna Ortega just because of the buzz, but like, to be one of the in top 8 for comedy, the headline that John put up with from the Hollywood Reporter is something a lot of people are complaining about, especially after the fact here, of these like blurred lines between comedy and drama, and it's like. is there something wrong with the Emmy classification? Because it's like, yeah, is Barry and the Bear comedy? You know, I mean, I even like debated like, yeah, the White Lotus, is it really like a drama? I think it's definitely a satire. Yeah, I laugh a lot during it. Yeah, sure, there's dark elements, but I think the majority is comedy, and it's like, so there's a lot of like weird overlap. Succession's very funny. And it's not just like length, because you have, you know, a lot of times it was like 30 minutes comedy, 60 minutes drama. But like we have Marvelous Miss Maisel. That's an hour. Like a lot of this season of Ted Lasso was like an hour or more.
Yeah. Oh my God. Tell me about it.
You know, I didn't watch the final season, or maybe it's the final season. Who knows? But like I saw it was like exploring themes of like sexuality, racism, mental illness. I'm like, oh, what a laugh riot. Like that is like, it's just... I think lines are so blurry, and I don't know what the answer is, because do you make it just based on time? Best half-hour show, best hour show, but then there's gonna be shows that are 15 minutes, and then there's shows that are an hour 30. It's like,
and in the streaming world, it's like the minutes don't really matter anymore. It's like whatever the creator wants, or based on what they feel is best for the story. But yeah, I don't know. I think there does need to be some kind of different classification system, because I think we all recognize that there are these differences in the shows, but when you try and classify them, it's hard to pinpoint the exact, like, what is the definition of this? Because I would put White Lotus in comedy more than I would probably Barry, honestly.
Yeah, and I mean, and we were talking about the Bear, and obviously, like, there was an episode this past season that was an hour long. That was drama. Like, there was a scene at the end that was dramatic. There was nothing funny about it. Again, this is only for season 1, so, you know, even though season 2 is now, they're doing the Emmys thing where it's like, oh, season 2, how good is season 2? Remember that? You're voting for season 1. Like, they're using that kind of buzz. So, yeah, I mean, you mentioned Jury Duty. Yeah, very excited for Jury Duty to be nominated. It's like an odd thing, because obviously it's like sort of reality, but mostly comedic. It's a scripted series with just one non-actor. Technically, I think I saw that, like, I think Ronald was entered as like a comedy actor, because the rest of the cast was James Marsden got in for supporting actor. So it got a nomination for casting. It got a nomination for the writing, for the actor who plays Noah. He's a writer on the series. He did the soaking episode. I'll leave it at that. So that got nominated. That's there. So I can't wait to see what clip they pull from that for the Emmy montage. But yeah, I was very excited to see Jury Duty. It's like funny because, again, we were talking about Amazon. Oh, all this money for Lord of the Rings, The Boys, all this stuff. And here's like this thing that they put on Freevee. And this is probably the most popular show that they have right now. Yeah. You know, it's just wild. But we talked a little bit about Ted Lasso, and that it's leading here still for nomination for comedy. Thankfully, though, the supporting categories were a bit more under control this year. Just 4 nominees for Ted Lasso supporting players. The actors who play the characters of Jamie, Roy Kent, Keely, and Rebecca got nominations. I remember last year it was like 4 or 5 in each category. It's like, all right, really? Like everyone on the team is a nominee here. But unfortunately, though, that still didn't give enough room for folks that I was hoping for, like Stephen Root, Sarah Goldberg for Barry. Neither of them got in. NoHo Hank, played by Anthony Carrigan, Gene, Henry Winkler, they made it in for supporting actor. But yeah, any thoughts on these supporting races, Kyle?
I'm glad with the Bear nomination. She's fantastic in the show. I've been watching Shrinking a lot. I like Jessica Williams a lot in the show. And I agree with the Ted Lasso. You know, I had my thing with Ted Lasso, but I feel like the ones that they have nominated there are worthy of the nomination for sure. But overall, I can't say I'm surprised. It would have been nice to have Stephen Root in there somewhere, but yeah, I feel like all these are pretty deserving.
Yeah, and like looking at the list, some other ones that maybe didn't make the cut. I mean, none of the Atlanta supporting players did. Actually, not much from Atlanta at all this year. I mean, this was season 4 was eligible. I don't know if many people thought last year season 3 and 4 were all together, and that screwed things up last year. But season 4 was eligible here, so it was bad timing. Who knows? But just one nomination for cinematography, but nothing for Donald or Brian Tyree Henry. Or even like writing, directing of, there was that Goof Who Sat by the Door doc episode. I think could have gotten something for editing, like something, but no.
But Brian Tyree Henry's episode where he's in the farm, he's fantastic in that. Lakeith Stanfield's acting in the final episode was great too. Because it's weird that whole series ended on him and his, whatever psychosis.
It ended on Judge Judy, but yeah. Well, I guess, but also, Shutout was FXX's Dave. Nothing for that series. That aired. They did that thing where it's like, let's put it right at the end. People will remember it. May 31st is our finale. And even all those guest stars, especially the big cameo in the final episode, nothing for like guest actor in a comedy. So that was kind of surprising.
That is surprising. Brad Pitt was great in that, man.
Yeah, so,
a snub I'll mention for a supporting actor, too, because I've just been watching it. Harrison Ford in Shrinking is probably because I think Jason Segel was nominated.
Yep.
And Jessica Williams was nominated. He probably is the most deserving.
That's what I've been hearing. That Harrison Ford.
He's so good. And he's a scene stealer, great dramatically, great comedically. He probably should have been nominated.
Yeah, and then he actually had like a double shot. He could have been nominated for either Shrinking or for that Yellowstone series. I think it's like 1923, I think is the one he's in.
Whatever number they're on.
He could have gotten something, but no, I mean, nothing for Harrison Ford. I'm looking at other ones, speaking of Under Control, and we were talking about like Ted Lasso. I'm so glad we've gotten out of the tradition of like, if you were famous and you hosted SNL, you get a guest acting nomination. It was just like 5 of the 6 would always be a host of SNL. And this year it's just 2. If we look at guest actor in a comedy and guest actress in a comedy series, we have Pedro Pascal and Quinta Brunson. That's it for SNL. Those are the 2 SNL hosts that got nominations this year. You got some other ones you expect in there. Oliver Platt for The Bear, John Bernthal, of course, for The Bear. Some Ted Lasso folks, of course. But and speaking of SNL, the former head writers that are a little bit in possible hot water right now did get a writing nomination for the other 2.
I was thinking of this too. Yeah,
they got the first, I think, nomination, and I guess it'll be only because it's the final season. But then again, it's very confusing because I'm not sure the eligibility of this entire season, because you need to air, I think, at least like the majority, which is like 6. I think it's like 6 episodes within that 531 cutoff, and this was like it was half on one, half on the other. So this episode was before 531. They had 6 episodes, but like, will they then be able to enter any of the ones for next year or any of the actors? It's very confusing when these shows overlap. Is strange. But for good for them for getting in finally, because that show was, I think the 3rd season was really funny still, and despite it's whatever happened behind the scenes, I'm sad to see it go.
Yeah, it is good. It is good.
But yeah, so that's actually all I got for comedy. Any other thoughts before we head to the last category?
No, I think I mentioned the snubs that I had in my mind.
Okay, let's go to limited series, and we just have 5 nominees here. And it's Beef, Dahmer, Monster, The Jeffrey Dahmer Story, Daisy Jones and the Six, Fleshman is in Trouble, and Obi-Wan Kenobi. Those are your 5 nominees here. Thoughts on those, Kyle?
So I know I texted you guys this. I feel like I watch a lot of TV, and this is usually limited series is the one I'll watch the most. And this year, it's a total blind spot for me. I really like Beef. I binged that pretty quickly. I've heard great things about Fleischman in Trouble, but I haven't checked it out yet. I don't think I could have done the Dahmer thing anymore. One was good for me.
Yeah.
But people love that, man. That was
It's
a
huge.
hot commodity for a while.
You know what? That kind of true crime stuff, whether it's a dramatization or like the Forensic Files approach, always does well. And this was filmed like this. The cinematography and the production was great. So just the two of those together made it, elevated it. You know, so I'm not surprised.
Yeah. And I am not like Star Wars. I'll go watch a big movie, but I don't know if I'm going to do TV. So I'm out on the Kenobi, and I haven't heard much about Daisy Jones and the Six, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, for me, there's no big shock here that Beef and Dahmer led with 13 apiece. Of course, they were going to get in, but I just feel like overall, sort of a weaker year. I feel like the last 2 or 3 years, I feel like Limited's kind of been
very strong. Or
it
was strong.
It was strong, but it's gotten
really,
like
really
weaker. And I think you can also see it a little bit with the amount of nominees, because from other aspects, normally it's limited series and TV movies. It's like the limited or anthology series in a TV movie. Like it's that giant thing for all the actors. And if you look, it's like, okay, sure, you have limited series here, but let's look at those acting nominees. And it's like, well, a lot of these are from those TV movies. So it's like, oh, well, maybe there wasn't enough shows to really give the writing and the directing and the acting nominations. It was the movies that were actually a little bit more stronger this year. But I am surprised that Kenobi's here. I mean, it was over a year ago that it aired. It's the lowest nomination total of the 6. Other shows got like some major noms, which I'll talk about in a second. But I just feel like overall, you know, critics, fans, I think they seemed more excited about Andor than Kenobi. And it's just like, I don't know what it is. It's just the name of both Ewan McGregor and Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's like, oh, check. I got to do that. But, you know, if you look at like some of the other shows, I mean, for instance, Swarm got a writing nom. It got some acting noms. Didn't get series. Blackbird, you know, which I feels like it's been eligible for like years at this point. It just feels like it's been around. Like I see it, like maybe it's just because of like the timing of the awards categories. It's like it got 3 acting noms. You know, Kenobi just got series, and then 4 below the line tech stuff. You know, sound, costumes, editing. So it's like it didn't really get any of the big ones. Like, so how did it get the big one? Like, it's very confusing. Because like, sure, I said it's a weaker year, but could still have had, like, I got some shows that people thought could be in here. This Is Going to Hurt, Irma Vep, The Patient, Welcome to Chippendales, George and Tammy, Tiny Beautiful Things. There was a lot of shows that could have made it in. Even I saw many people were angered about Dead Ringers. Just got a cinematography nomination. A lot of people were mad Rachel Weisz did not get in for her dual performance in that series. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think while it was a weaker year, I think there was other ones that could have made it in. So it's like an interesting group of 5. But yeah, looking at other snubs, I don't have too much to say for this category. I don't think this one deserved it, but big goose egg for HBO's very buzzy White House Plumbers. It seemed designed, you know, for awards. Oh, it's a period piece about Watergate with, you know, all these big stars in it. You know, it's like, no, it just didn't connect. It just, so
I was definitely okay with just finishing where I was. It was not, I did not care to move along with that at all.
Any other limited series snubs, thoughts in there that we need to talk about?
Well, I know we talked about it in the as like a coming attraction, possibly, is the Chippendales one. I haven't checked it out, but I know Nanjiani was nominated.
There was a bunch of acting nominations for it. Trying to pull it up real quick. Murray Bartlett, I mean, he's a double nominee this year, you know, with The Last of Us. Annalee Ashford got in. I think I saw a couple of different performances. You mentioned Kamal. So I think it did not so bad for Welcome to Chippendales. But all right, let's look at some other stuff. Just some miscellaneous categories I want to talk about a little bit here. I'm happy that Survivor is back in the reality competition category. I think its last one was like 2006. But I don't know if it was for these seasons, because I don't know if it needed these seasons to get in. But I'm just happy to see it get some recognition. Last year's Emmy winner Tim Robinson up again for short form actor and for series for I Think You Should Leave.
That's awesome.
And I will say I'm a little sad for Nothing for the rehearsal. They seem to really love Jury Duty, which was more maybe a positive, more uplifting version of like the rehearsal. But you know, I think maybe it was timing. It was like last July then that show was around. It was very buzzy and think pieces were then. I think people just forgot about it this time around. But
that show, man, is deeply disturbing. So I probably understand them going along with the Jury Duty, where it's much more lighthearted than this. It's very specific. Did anything for wasn't he eligible? The John Wilson stuff, or is that?
I don't think he was eligible this season.
Yeah, because
past season I think he was.
Yeah.
And might have gotten something before, but and then the final season, which is coming at the end of July, will be next year. But again, will people remember? We'll see. But
but I'm just glad that Tim Robinson got something. It's weird, even though like this season wasn't fantastic. At least it's different. So at least we're celebrating that, you know?
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm going to bring up this one category, unless you have any other things that you want to jump in on, miscellaneous stuff, because there's this real confusion for me over this category and this change for John Oliver. So John Oliver, he always wins for Variety Talk Series. He always wins. And this year, though, that category... And let's see, the Variety Sketch Series categories that like SNL usually wins, they went through some changes. A Variety Talk Series will be renamed Talk Series, and Variety Sketch Series will be Scripted Variety Series. And I got those definitions to explain it a little bit more. So Outstanding Talk Series are programs where a significant portion of the running time consists of unscripted interviews or panel discussions between hosts and guest celebrities or personalities. A talk series can include scripted elements and other aspects of a variety series, such as monologue, musical performances, etc., so long as the main intent of the program is interviews and discussions. The Outstanding Scripted Variety Series will be programs that are primarily scripted or feature loosely scripted improv and consist of discrete scenes, musical numbers, monologues, comedy stand-ups, sketches, etc. Scripted variety series may occasionally feature unscripted elements, but the main intent of the series is scripted or performed entertainment. So what does this all mean? So normally John Oliver was with, The Daily Show, Jimmy Kimmel Live, Late Night, Colbert, all those talk shows. But now it is going to go with those like sketch series. It's up there with a Black Lady Sketch Show, Saturday Night Live. It's just those 3 nominees instead of it just being 2 nominees in that category where SNL usually wins. So they're pretty much
The Daily Show though is the last segment is talk, but the earlier stuff is what John Oliver did, and it's usually like a scripted skit of some kind. So the fact that they have 2/3 of their show is on that right side, and yet they're in the talk series is a little because
they always have like that like one person come in where it's like doing like a little bit on the field or whatever.
Yeah, but that's scripted, man.
Yeah, and that's a little bit that I only saw 1 or 2 episodes of The Problem with Jon Stewart, but from what I saw, it was also pretty much The Daily Show. 2/3 of this, behind the desk, John Oliver monologue, and then the last third, an interview with someone or like a little panel discussion or something. But then there's times when John Oliver, 2/3 is this, and then the last third is a skit, or sometimes it's an interview. Like it's, maybe it's a fake interview, but it's so the lines are very weirdly blurred here, and it's very like I feel like subjective. Like I feel like I don't know. And
well, I'm going to tell you, they're going to have to redo these categories in probably 2 to 3 years because the talk series is so bland that I don't know if it survives.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if there's going to be enough nominees, because that's another thing that's always confusing with the scripted variety series category. They only usually have 2 because it's like based on like the number. It's like, oh, well, if there's 10 nominees, that means we can have 3, actual nominees. Oh, if there's 20, we can have 5. Like it's very like subjective of how many shows there are, period. And it's like, you're telling me that there's still like 5 talk series, but there's only like 3 variety series one. It's like, oh, there's Inside Amy Schumer this year. There was that History of the World Part 2. I mean, who knows? Could the scripted variety series, could that have been the rehearsal? Like it's, so like there's multiple other shows, but it's always those. And I think what would be really interesting though is like, well, SNL always wins. John Oliver always wins. Well, now they're up against each other. And we'll finally get a new winner in the talk series, but I wonder if those things is like, well, we would have lost if John Oliver was here. Like, we're just second. But I don't know. What's interesting is like now Jon Stewart kind of took that spot in this category, even though the year before he was nominated in hosted nonfiction series or special category.
Boy.
So it's like, wait, what is that category, and why can't those talk shows go in that category? It's like, this whole thing's a mess.
Silly. Yeah.
It's a mess. But I don't know. I don't know what to say with all that. The only other thing I want to bring up tonight is, again, we've been talking about these nominations all night for a ceremony that we hope will be in September. Well, that ceremony could easily be delayed, because it's not just because like who's writing the ceremony with the WGA on strike, but who's going to be hosting, with SAG now on strike, the Screen Actors Guild. Not to mention, a part of their strike is, well, there's no campaigning, there's no press, there's no awards shows, all part of the SAG strike rules. So if both of those are on strike, what are we going to do? Like, there's no ceremony.
Yeah.
And it's sad, because there's so many people that deserve this recognition for all the work that they put in. But at the same time, it's like, this strike is important, and we gotta. We're not gonna give a big show for the networks that we're striking against.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, they would have to, even though if they don't have a ceremony, do they still choose? Well, are they still voting? And will those results come out?
It's very confusing, because I think the only time this is happened, I think it was when the Writers Guild were on strike back in the day, and it was with the Golden Globes, because those were in early January. And I think they did it as like a press conference. Like it was like a 20-minute thing. Nobody watched it. Like it was, of course, nobody. It was probably like a one person in front of a podium just saying all the winners. So that's not good for ratings. I mean, that's not good. So who knows? Even before the SAG, strike, there was talks like, oh, maybe it's going to be pushed to November, maybe January. They're thinking, and it's like, well, January. I mean, that puts it in the prime, like the Oscar time. Now you have Oscars and Golden Globes and, all these other awards shows competing against each other for, just the spotlight, for the attention of the viewers who are already kind of over awards shows. But then it makes me wonder, what about the Oscars? Everyone thinks, oh, well, it's going to move to January and the Oscars are there. It's like, well, if the strikes are still happening, the Oscars are moving too. I don't know.
Yeah, this is it's a big one. And the fact that both unions are striking at the same time is an even bigger deal, and what's being talked about. So I really could see the strike definitely lasting until the end of the summer, even like when the start of the TV season is, and then going from there. But who knows, man? Yeah,
it's good. It's going to be long. And we were talking about this SAG strike, and it literally, the news came out today. We have just a little bit of time for a special. Normally it's at the top of the show, but we're doing it at the end of the show. John, what's the segment called?
In and out points.
In or the out. In or the out. In, out, in, out, in, out, in or the out.
Yeah, so officially at midnight tonight, SAG-AFTRA, the Screen Actors Guild, is going on strike. It's the first time in 63 years where Hollywood has faced a double strike. two guilds are striking at the same time. The DGA reached a deal earlier this year or earlier this summer, but SAG, WGA are unable to at this moment. And a lot of what SAG wants is what the WGA wants, and a lot of it's driven by technology. So it's going to be like this interesting, I think, like, who knows? Are they going to possibly team up a little bit? If one group gets it, the other group's going to want it. Because it really comes down to two things, and then we'll get your thoughts on it. It's about streaming. Streaming has changed everything from episode counts. That means like actors are possibly going to be earning less money per job because there's less episodes, and then residuals. Like, well, how am I going to get paid for this past work? Netflix sometimes will do like a bigger fee, maybe up front. You get all this more money up front, but like if it becomes a big hit, you're not seeing any of that. But it becomes so that's very confusing. And then to go with technology, possibly the biggest concern, especially for like the WGA, but also now for SAG, is AI, artificial intelligence. We've talked about this, many times on the podcast. We've seen it, it really used in de-aging these past few weekends with Indiana Jones 5. It's possible, it's out there, but it's, it's concerning to voiceover artists. It's a huge deal. Kyle, like, what do you think about, between the SAG strike, between AI, all of this, what's going on?
There's several concerns. The streaming thing is important because a lot of actors feel like they're not getting what they should based on how much the studios are making. And there is enough money. It's just that, the studios don't want to give up the money that they already have. And we're seeing it with, studios pulling down content so that they don't have to pay residuals, because that was a thing of how they could make more money is residuals. And if you're taking down content, then how can creators see any residual money? So that's got to be frustrating. And so I would want to know, like, how much, even if I know for a set time, like for a full year, it's got to be up, or for this amount of time. And then AI, the problem is, and I said this before on the podcast, you could come up with some type of contract in 2 years that becomes obsolete, and you're now in a 5-year contract. And now we're working with technology that you didn't even know existed.
With AI, it could be like 2 months, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Like it's.
Yeah.
So I don't know how this works out. And it seems like the studios are going to play hardball because it's already in use. It's already being used. People are giving away their rights. Like Bruce Willis was like, one of the first high profile ones that was like willing to kind of lend his visual or his face to future projects. So this is a rabbit hole that legally I don't know how it works out with the Sarah Silverman.
That's a lawsuit going on.
Lawsuit that's ongoing. It's just we're in a weird time, and it just so happens to coincide with when this is being renegotiated. Yeah. So it's like a perfect storm almost.
It really is. And to show how widely opposed the two sides are right now, the AMPTA, like that's the group that they're negotiating with, with SAG. It's at the SAG press conference today. It was shared the one thing that they proposed as a solution, the AMPTP. Excuse me, I'm too many letters here. The solution that the other side proposed for SAG to consider was for background actors to be scanned for 1 day of work, and then their likeness can be used forever.
I don't know how they thought any other response besides like F you was like correct here.
Oh, so you're going to give me the minimum for a day work, and then you own me for all of eternity. Yeah, that's a great deal. Sign me up. Like,
yeah, it's crazy.
I don't get it. Yep. Hey guys, we got a great idea for you. I think we're gonna be able to sign this deal tonight. Here it is. Oh my god! And yeah, it's not ending anytime soon. Today, the Disney CEO Bob Iger said that the guild's demands are not realistic, and it's all, quote, very disturbing to him. And then there was a quote in Deadline from a studio exec that their goal is to break down the WGA by, quote, the end game is to allow things to drag on until union members start losing their apartments and losing their houses.
I mean, it is a strategy, but I don't know how that works out for you in favor of you.
Yeah, I'm sure the public's gonna be like, yeah, let's side with them. They know what's going. It's like,
yeah, it's terrible. It's brutal. I mean, they're messing with people's lives, and they're okay with that. It's scary, man. It's wild.
Yeah. But wow. Yeah. What a world. Obviously, this news dropped today, so some things may already have changed, and it's an ongoing thing. But we'll definitely be talking about it for sure. I'm positive on our next podcast, and it's going to be a quick turnaround. Normally, we do Mondays. This week we had to do a little bit later because of Emmy nominations, but we're going to be back this Monday, just in a couple of days, in our Monday night time slot, July 17th, to discuss Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1 and so many other possible TV shows. We got the returns of The After Party, What We Do in the Shadows is back. Maybe we'll talk about, the full season of The Bear Season 2. There's so much to talk about, a lot to do. Make sure you're following us on Twitter, Instagram, on TikTok at Dual Redundancy. You can find episodes of the podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the blog, dualredundancy.com. Live on Mondays, twitch.tv/Dual Redundancy, 8 p.m. Eastern on Mondays. And if you want to help support what we're doing here on the podcast, you can represent the podcast, you can grab some DR merch. We got some shirts, we got some hats, we got some mugs, stickers, all this kind of stuff in the merch store. And you can find the link on our link tree. And then there's also a shorthand link. What's that link, John?
It's bit.ly/drmerch, all capitals.
And DR merch is all capital there. So definitely check that out if you want to help support the podcast there. I got to thank both you guys for joining me tonight, for doing this a little bit off schedule. John directing the show, getting it up on Apple Podcasts, on YouTube. I couldn't do it without either of you guys. But man, that's all we got for tonight. I'm David Allen.
I'm John Berwick.
And I'm Kyle Bridger.
And that's all we got for our 10th annual Emmy nomination reaction special. Goodbye, everybody.